You guys, it's time for tonight's show. Hashtags. Here we go. Hashtag. Here we go. This one's from @Christina Terry. She says, I asked my dad if I was adopted, and he said, trust me, no one would pay for you. Good night, Dad. Good night. This one is @Stunna Hayes. She says, my dad told me that if I ever wanted to nap during class to make it look like I'm praying so my teacher couldn't get mad.
Hey, oh, you're praying. Never mind. You're praying.
Yeah, B squared. This one's from @LiveInJustToday. She says, I asked my dad why we never had the talk about drugs. He said, I don't have to worry about you. You don't have any money. Yay, Dad! This first one's from @XYuppie. He says, my dad always tells me, don't use your turn signal. It's no one else's business where you're going. No. This one's from @Stephanie Leggs. She says, my mom once texted me, can you come over? I want you to take a selfie of me. That's not how you, that's what, forget it. This one's from @JedFule. He said, when I asked my parents why they never gave me the sex talk, they said it was because they weren't worried. Thanks, Dad. @Hannah Garcia says, my parents are weird. She says, my dad buried my hamster in the backyard after it died. He tells me 3 years later it was just about dead when he buried it. What? This one's from @Holly Lou Harris. She says, on Valentine's Day last year, my mom texted me, enjoy your VD. Thanks, Mom. This last one's from @Alyssa DeFonte. She says, I texted my mom telling her, I love you. All I got back in return was, okay.
Good morning, everybody. Hey, thank you so much for coming out to church. Great to have you here. Appreciate everybody who's watching online. It's great to have you join us as well. And everybody over in Isanti, hey, thank you so much for being here in Isanti to go to church today. Great to have you. We are continuing our series, What's Love Got to Do with It? And this topic, now we've been talking about for a couple weeks, is a huge topic of love. It's just, how do you get your arms around this, or get your head around love? What does it look like, all that? But we need to understand is this. Sometimes we think love's not that important, or, who needs it, or we can go on with life without it. Really? Really? You think so? Because love is extremely important. As a matter of fact, and this is a great part of the Bible, and I shared this last 2 weeks, is I love how the Bible is just so clear and it's just so real. Some people came to Jesus when he was on this earth. They came to him and they said, hey, Jesus, God is really big, and we got a Bible that's really huge now, It's just God has all these requirements and all these things, all this stuff about God. Jesus, could you help us out with this? If we could just talk right to God, say, hey, what's the most important thing that God wants? Is it all the same, or does he need everything? Try to put this so we can understand it. And they said, what's the most important thing to God? And Jesus answered the question. He just replied, to love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your mind. This is the first and greatest commandment. This is what God is all about. God is all about love, and what God wants. I know there's a whole bunch of rules in the Bible and a whole bunch of stuff, but really what God wants, all this stuff is about one thing. God just simply wants us to love him with our heart, that he wants just to be first in our life, to love him. But Jesus went on with the second part of this. They didn't ask what the second one was, but it was so close to it. He said, and the second is like it, to love your neighbor as yourself. All of the law and the prophets hang on these two commandments. In other words, everything about God, the whole Bible, all the things that are written, everything comes down to this: love. It's all about love. And what God says, Jesus is saying this very clear that, you know what, if you did forget about everything else and you were like, if you wanted to live your life with just focusing on one thing, just one thing, it's love. It's loving God and loving others. And that's how important it is. But as important as what God makes that, as important as what Jesus said, isn't it interesting that something so important we could so not understand? Love is a hard thing to understand. What does love look like? If you were to describe to somebody, what is love? It's the most important thing in the world. So what is it? Is it just an emotion? Is love just this emotion that gives you all flutters inside, and gets you all, so you can't think straight? Is it just this emotion that carries you away? Or is love a commitment? Forget the emotion. Who needs emotions? Is love just this commitment, that I will do and I will be and I will give and I'll just live my life in a committed way to other people? What is love, and how do you put your hands around that? How do we understand it? How do you show it? How do you describe it to people, even your family? How do they know? Do you love me? And it's just tough to get this under control. And so this whole series is really about defining love. It's about defining love and talking about love and what is love. And basically it comes to this explanation right here. Love is to accurately estimate and adequately supply another person's need. Love is giving of ourselves to supply what's missing in other people's lives. It's giving of ourselves to fulfill somebody else, to accomplish and to fulfill, to meet their needs. People that we love is we give of ourselves to meet their needs. However, not all of their selfish wants, but their needs. And here's the difficult thing about love is really this first part is to accurately estimate. To love somebody is to accurately estimate what is it that they need. And sometimes that can be very difficult. What does a person need? And it's a challenge to say, I got to first estimate what does this person need in their life to be fulfilled, to be complete. Not a selfish want, but what's really a need in their life. And once we discover what that need is, then to fulfill that need, that's love. Now, last week we talked about just the specific thing of marriage or dating. And we kind of just took this definition and talked about what does that look like in marriage? What does that look like when you're dating somebody? What does it look like to love them? And here's the thing, the challenge is when we're dating, and especially we talked about the Christian view of marriage, which is between a man and a woman. I mean, the first thing to fulfill somebody's needs is to first understand what are they. And just because men and women are so different last week, and this just as a review, last week we went over and just what his needs and her needs are. They're not exact, but they're really close, generally what men need and generally what women need. And here is how you love somebody in marriage, is that you fulfill what they need, not what you need. So he is to fulfill what she needs. These are needs she has, whether they make sense to you or not. These are needs he has, whether it makes sense to you or not, and to fulfill each other's needs. Now, last week after we were done, we handed out the cards, basically that have that. They're just like that, and we ran out. So we have some more printed. They're at the information table, so you can go home and discuss your needs, her needs, his needs, whatever. And so you can go ahead and do that. We have some more cards out there. Also, at this point, I would highly recommend the marriage class, Laugh Your Way to a Better Marriage. If you have not been that, maybe many of you in Isanti have not been to that, I just encourage you to sign up for that. You will thoroughly enjoy it. It will help you out. So a little plug for that. Today, I want to talk about another specific, very important part of our lives. And we're going to talk about what does love got to do with that, or how does love fit in, and that is the area of parenting. Now, whether you're a grandparent, or you're raising children right now, or you're going to be a parent someday, is probably the most challenging, the most heart-wrenching, the most difficult thing you will ever do in your life. Parenting is right at the top of one of the most challenging and difficult things. It'll take more emotion and more effort and more work to parent. And here's why. Because when we have children, I mean infants cannot do anything on their own. Nothing. I remember I was 19 years old when our first baby was born, and 19-year-old kid, I've never held a baby before, so they handed me my daughter, Leah. Here she is. And you know what? The handoff, it was like it came with an instruction book. Okay? Somebody handed the baby to me and said, okay, now here's how you hold it. Put this arm under here. You got to put this arm, make sure you hold the head. Why? Is it going to fall off? I mean, I don't know, Like you got to hold this thing like this. It's because, here's the deal. A baby can't do anything. I mean, they can't do anything on their own. They need a parent's complete care. I mean, if you don't care for them, they will die. I mean, it's just, they need complete care. But not only does a baby come with absolutely no abilities at all, they can't do anything on their own. They also come with, they don't know anything. I mean, they don't know anything. They're like an empty sponge. It's absolutely empty. And a parent's responsibility is to teach and train and discipline and get this child to where they're 18 years old or moving out of the house. They're adults. And here's the difficulty of parenting. This is why it's so challenging, because this infant comes, can't do anything, doesn't know anything. And God says that parents, it's your responsibility to produce this product. I mean, they get everything they learn and know and become really is primarily by the influence of their parents. Now, there's other influences for sure, but primarily the influences of the parents. And that's why the Bible tells us, this is so important, why the Bible tells us on how to parent and how important it is. It says this to parents: start children off on the way that they should go. This is what your job is, to start them off the way they should go. And even when they are old, they will not turn from it. In other words, what the Bible's telling us is this, that the end product over here is primarily the parent's responsibility. That how we parent and how we teach and how we put all of our values and all of the things that they need to know and knowledge and into this, that this is the way they're going to be when they're older, primarily. Now, there's other influencers, I get that. But primarily, parents, they're the ones that produce this product at the end. And here's the challenge with this. You can't love more than you love your kids. I mean, most parents just love their kids so much. But how and what does love look like? How do we love our kids, knowing that this is our job to do this? What does love look like when you're parenting? Is loving your kids never saying no? Is it to just say, let your kids do whatever they want? I mean, is that what love looks like when you're parenting? It's like, hey, I love my kids so much, I don't want to ever say no in their life. Just everything. Is loving your kids bringing them to every sporting event? Is loving your kids doing everything that they want to do? Is that what love looks like? Or is loving your kid, being so strict and disciplining them all the time? Is that what love looks like? Does love look like you discipline them and you're always on them and you make sure of this? I mean, what does love look like when you're raising kids? I remember that I said some things I heard my dad say. I remember when my dad was, we were growing up. I have 3 other brothers, and my dad did most of the disciplining and teaching and stuff. And I remember he always said this before he was going to discipline us. He always said this. He said, this is going to hurt me more than it's going to hurt you. I thought that was so dumb. But then I found myself saying it. I remember disciplining my kids and saying that. I mean, I can remember having tears in my eyes and crying and telling my kids that I don't want to do this. And then I give them a spanking or punish them some way. I remember one time, telling my kids, I heard my dad say this, I thought it was dumb, and then I found myself saying it too, and that is this: I'm only doing this because I love you. I'm only going to spank you, or I'm going to take this away because I love you. And I remember one time my son Mikey said, Dad, wish you didn't love me so much. And you know, from a kid's perspective, you can look at that and say, what's love got to do with that? I mean, really? You're gonna spank me, or you're gonna, not have dessert or do some kind of discipline? And a kid can look at that and say, like, that looks like love. What's love got to do with that? That don't look like love. What does love look like? It looks like this. Even with our children, to accurately estimate and adequately supply their needs. Not their selfish wants. Not to just give them everything they want, to make sure we fulfill all of their wants, everything that they want. No. But here's where the challenge of parenting comes in, is to understand what do they need to reach this. What do our children need as they're going through life and growing up? What do they need to reach adulthood where they are responsible, healthy, well-rounded, hardworking, giving, followers of Jesus Christ? What does it take to give them there? And as we look at them and watch our children, and we are stewards of our children, to analyze, like, what do they really need in view of that goal? And then we fulfill that need. And here's the thing, the Bible tells us a lot of parenting skills. The Bible really basically tells us everything about life. But I just want to read a few scriptures that the Bible tells us as parents, or how to treat our children, or how to raise them. And here's the first one. It says, fathers. It means parents, but whoever's doing the disciplining here. Fathers, do not exasperate your children. Okay? Don't overdo it. Instead, bring them up in the training and instruction of the Lord. Saying, parents, here's what God's saying. Parents, it's not just up to the school system, the school district. Okay, parents, it's not just up to somebody else. What I want you to do as parents is you are to teach and train your children. This is your responsibility, to teach them on, to teach them your values, to teach them your morals, to teach them how to reason, how to think, to teach them and to train them on how to behave correctly. And that is a huge responsibility on parents, is to teach and train our kids and have the responsibility of bringing them up in the knowledge and the training that they need to be well-adjusted adult people. Another verse the Bible talks about, this isn't specifically for parents, but it certainly includes parents. It says, and we urge you, brothers and sisters, warn those who are idle. Okay, and this is for your children, warn those who are idle, okay, and disruptive. Encourage the disheartened. Part of parenting is to encourage our children when they're disheartened, to help the weak, to help them go on and get better, and be patient with everyone. I mean, the Bible's telling us that this is how we're to treat people, but certainly this is how we're to treat our children, and to care for them, to encourage them, to instruct them, to be patient with them, and continue to do this. And obviously there's discipline as well. The Bible tells us, the next verse says, whoever spares the rod, especially in today's culture, I know spanking's not a big thing. Just ask Adrian Peterson. He'll tell you. But I tried a football joke, Coley. I don't know. It didn't work. So, I know that obviously, the Bible would never encourage abuse at all, obviously. However, discipline or spanking. Whoever spares the rod or doesn't spank their kid hates their children. That's a strong word, isn't it? They hate their children. But the one who loves their children is careful to discipline them. It is a part of what our children need in order to reach the goal in their life. It's a part of what they need. So in order to love our kids, we first have to, accurately estimate what their needs are. And here we have a list of needs. And this isn't the total list, but here's a general list of what children need from the Bible. This is what the Bible says that children need. They need teaching, and they need encouragement, discipline, and they need empowerment, and they need prayer. I mean, our kids need that. And as a parent, it is our responsibility to know when to do one and when to do another. We can't just do one thing all the time, but we need to know when to do one and when to do the other. And I just want to go through them really quick. Teaching our kids. Again, it's not up to the school system to teach them everything. It's up to the parents to teach their children the difference between right and wrong. To teach our children responsibility. To teach our children to be givers, to give, not selfish, but giving. To teach our kids how to reason and how to think and not just follow or believe everything that they hear. It's our responsibility as parents to teach them. Now, that can look different in different ways. Now, we all don't learn the same way. It's so important in parenting to understand and to be a student of your children, to know that how do they learn? How do I get across to this child versus that child? And to teach them and to be, and here's the thing about this list. If we love our kids, we will be very careful to discern or to know when and how to do each one of these. To encourage our kids. Encouragement is so important. That to encourage your kids is to empower them. I mean, they can go on and do more. And here's the thing, as a parent, we need to know, when do we encourage and when do we teach or when do we discipline? Because in encouragement, if you don't give your children encouragement, they will never accomplish what they were created to accomplish. They'll never reach their goals, ever. But if all you do is encourage, even if you encourage in bad behavior, you will create a monster. There's no doubt. We have to know when to encourage. And here's the thing, as you watch your own children, if you see them struggling in something, but they're trying their best, encourage them to keep going. Encourage them that they do have abilities and they do have gifts and they do good at things. Encourage them. I know that my dad was great at encouragement. He was also a great teacher, but every chance or opportunity he had, I can remember in my life, that he was encouraging me. I mean, all the time, and my brothers. I try to with my own kids. Now, here's the thing. If my kids are doing bad things, if they're making poor choices, I don't encourage that. That would be ridiculous. But encourage when you see hope, when you see movement, when you see them going in the right way. Encourage them. Because here's the thing, and I can say this, and I've shared this many times with you guys. I still see my mom and dad once a week for breakfast. And my dad's almost 80 years old. I'm 54 years old. My dad tells me every time he sees me, he says, "Son, you're a great man." I pretend that I don't need to hear that. I'm 54 years old. I mean, why I need that? I want to tell you something. Inside, and I wouldn't tell anybody except I'm telling you. Inside, there's still a little child in there that is so pumped up when his dad says, "You're a great man." It's amazing what encouragement will do. Discipline. Hey, we have to discipline our kids. Here's the thing. Know when to discipline. When do we discipline our kids? And, like how to discipline our kids. And do you discipline every kid the same? Probably not. But here's the thing. If, as a parent, your goal is to produce, at the other end, a very responsible human being. And if they're not acting in that way, what's going to change them? You don't encourage them. We have to discipline. We have to discipline to correct behavior and to correct, the direction in which they're going. Empowerment. And this whole empowerment thing is, we can't control our kids' lives their whole life. We have to, remember, the goal is to let them go. They're not going to be perfect at the other end. But our goal is to, hopefully produce the best product that we can. And by empowering, it's like along the way, when do you empower your kids to make their own choices? That you can make your own decisions. It's a part of the growing process. You don't wait until they're 18, you've ran their life, you've made every decision for them and say, "Okay, now go out in the world." The world will kill them. They'll eat them up. They'll just be destroyed, Like we have to learn to empower them along the way and know like how much to empower and when not to. And prayer. Here's the thing we think sometimes with prayer is that, well, you just pray when they're in trouble or pray. I would definitely pray when they're in trouble, but I pray all the time. See, prayer isn't this thing you just throw on the end. Prayer is a very active, powerful source. And I know that, and some of you know my story, but where I was when I was in my very early 20s, I know that through the breaking the law and the drugs and all that stuff, that my mom and dad, prayed constantly. I mean, they were always praying. And there were times it looked impossible. There were times they could say, there's no hope. No, there's always hope with God, and to pray. Pray along the way. Pray for your children. I know that something that my mom did for my kids was she prayed every single day. She prayed for all of her grandkids that they would marry a good spouse. What a great thing to pray for, that they would marry a good spouse. And so far, they're doing okay. Here's the thing about this whole list. Now, this is very important. About this whole list, love is doing this for your children. And too often, we do this for ourselves. Because here's the goal. Teaching, encouraging, disciplining, it has nothing to do with us. And far too often, and make this just a great reminder, that you don't discipline your kids for your sake. Well, I'm tired of it. Or I'm sick of listening to you. Or, we've been dealing with this long enough. And, we don't discipline your kids for your sake, just because you're tired of it or because you've had enough. We discipline them for their sake. It's to accurately estimate and adequately supply what they need. The reason we discipline kids is because they're going off. Now, whether you're good with it or bad with it, our emotions shouldn't be affected by how we discipline our kids or encourage. All of this whole list, should be constantly for their good. What do they need right now? Not what do I need. You see, they might need help with their homework. They might need help because they're falling behind, but they're trying really hard. They need you, whether you're tired or whether you have a busy day. What they need is your help. It's not about us or what's good. Let me tell you, most of this stuff's inconvenient for parents. Hey, parenting is not easy. It's inconvenient for parents, but parents, we have to do this for our children. Always discipline them for their good, not because you need to. Encourage them. Encourage them. Now, sometimes they might not be where you're at. They might, none of us are perfect in this. I've failed a few times in these things. But you know what? We got to do our best to think, do they need encouragement? Maybe they're not as good as where you think they should be. Maybe it's hard for you to encourage them in this. But listen, it's not about you. It's not about the parents. It's about the kids. What do they need? They need encouragement right now. Then you give them encouragement, even if you think they should be further than they are, if they're moving in the right direction. What do they need right now? Empowerment. Let me tell you just quickly, just a kind of a whole overview of parenting. Parenting was designed to be like this. For parents to completely control everything in a child's life. When your child's a toddler, you control everything. You control what they eat, what they don't eat, when they go to bed, when they wake up, what they do, who they play with, what they play with. You control everything. And the goal in parenting is to start out with complete control because they don't know anything and can't do anything. And the goal is to slowly release them by the time they are 18 years old, or in 17, 19, whatever, that you completely let go. They're making all their own decisions. So there is a process in letting go. And we need to watch our kids and know, how much do we empower them? I mean, and I'm not that great at this. It's been a long time since I raised kids. But, when do you start letting them make their own choices? Okay, you can choose to eat this or this. You don't do it at 3 years old. Okay? You don't reason with a 3-year-old. Can I please make that clear? You control 3-year-old. Get over here. Come here right now. Why? Because I said so. Now, when you're 3, you think that's really dumb. But it's not. So you just control them. And then as they start to grow, you open up and you empower them a little bit more. And you work with them as they make poor decisions when you're there to work with them and help them out to make. And can I tell you something just as a warning? It seems like today we think, so many times, we think love has to do with just letting our kids do whatever they want. Because I've seen far too often, and I've been in Walmart, okay? I've seen it. That it seems like parents have it backwards. Just as a challenge. I'm sure none of you do, but some parents have it backwards. They give their kid complete control when they're 4 years old. Oh, they don't want to eat that, so they won't have to, and they don't want to go to bed now, so they don't have to, and they don't. And they, complete control. And then when they get 13, 14 years old, they go, oh my gosh, this kid's going to have issues. And then they try to start putting control on when they're 13 or 14 years old. Listen, that ain't going to work. Okay, that's just going to fight. That's not the way God intended it. God intended for parents to control everything about their kids and to empower them as they grow so that when they reach 18 years old, they know how to make good choices because they've been making some the whole way. And to do that. And this whole thing about prayer, listen, it has nothing to do with us. Sometimes when we're all worried and our kids are doing this or something's happening and we start praying for them because we're upset, because we're worried. Listen, this list isn't about us. This list is about our kids. And to do these things for their good, what do they need? Now, with parenting, if you have more than one child, no two people are alike. And I know a lot of times we try to bring our kids up fairly, that we treat everybody fair. My dad I grew up with my dad he was constantly teaching. And I remember my dad at Christmas time, one of my brothers would get like a whole bunch of stuff and then the rest of us wouldn't. You might think, oh, that's unfair, that's unfair. You know what? We never thought it was unfair because we were taught the whole time that, well, what your brother needs right now, he just joined a sport. He just joined skiing. He needs skis. You're not in skiing. You don't need skis. So we don't have to try to match. His skis cost $150. We don't have to match what we give you. My parents did a great job of actually parenting in a way that we're not all the same. We don't all have the same needs. We're not all disciplined the same. My dad had to spank like crazy because he was stubborn. Yeah, that's my brother Mike, just in case you're watching this. Hey, my dad just talked to me, man. I'd cry and repent, right? We're different. Your kids are different. We got to learn and study our kids because to love our kids is to accurately estimate and then adequately supply what they need. And we can't always be responsible for the outcome. We certainly can't. Listen, if you're a parent here and you raised your kids your very best and now they're making poor choices, we're the number one influencer, but there's a lot of other influences. It's not always our fault, and we can't always take the credit either if they do really, really well. We can't. But I know this. Once you're a parent, you're always a parent. My kids now are in their 30s or close. I forgot their age just now. But anyway, I still do the same thing. I am no longer responsible for them. Yet I still love them. So I try very hard to accurately estimate and adequately supply their needs. It doesn't mean the things they want. You don't just keep giving and giving and giving. But when you realize that they need help, you help. When you realize that what they need is just discipline, then you don't help. We need to be stewards. We need to be students of our children and grow them. And with that, I'm going to let Shaheen pray and close the service in Isanti. And we are going to pray here. Let's pray. Father, parenting is one of the hardest things we will ever do. Especially when we love our kids so much. I know as a grandpa, I don't like to say no ever. But it's not about me. It's what's good for them. Love is for them. Give each one of us in this room wisdom and the strength to love our kids, to accurately estimate and adequately supply what they need in their life. Help us to do that. Help us to not be selfish and be about us, but to constantly be thinking about their future and where they're going to end up. Father, help us, I pray, to be good parents who love our kids. In Jesus' name, amen.